Hello everyone, welcome back to MixBus TV, mixing and mastering tutorials on YouTube. And this is part 2 of our ultimate compression tutorial. What we're gonna see today is what a compressor is, what it does, the basic controls, but I will not just talk about the basic controls. This is something you can read pretty much anywhere. What I would like to do is to give you a couple of concepts to keep in mind when using a compressor. Some things that I think are important regarding the basic controls, the way I look at them, and I think it's gonna be, easier to understand for the beginners, or at least I hope so. So let's start. A compressor is a dynamic processor. What it does is allows us to reshape dynamics. Usually the way we look at it is when we have, let's take for example, these snare hits. Louder parts and quieter parts, the compressor just reduced the level of the higher parts. So it diminished the difference in dynamics between, the louder parts and the quieter parts, no matter what the audio material is, could be a snare, bass drum, vocals, whole mix. So how do we set our compressor? What are the basic controls? In this one particularly, I choose this one because it's it's pretty easy to see the basic controls. So you will find pretty much in any compressor we have an input control. So if the material that we are feeding the compressor is too loud or too quiet to begin with, we can adjust the level here. And this is the first point. Don't record stuff too loud. And if you receive it, from a client to mix too loud, just have a good gain staging in your mix. And we will see more about that when we'll talk about the output control, the makeup gain. So here you adjust the input level. That's pretty straightforward. The threshold is the level to which the compressor, when the signal exceeds this level, will start to apply the gain reduction, so the compression. It will start to work. The ratio is how hard it will react, how hard it will compress, how much gain reduction will apply. And for example, then with a ratio of 2:1, if we have 10 dB coming exceeding the threshold, only 5 will be compressed. If we have 20, only 10 will be compressed, and so on. The higher the ratio, see the knee, and the more aggressive the compressor is, more obvious it's gonna sound, more gain reduction will be applied at the same threshold. So for example, let's take this snare with a ratio, let's say, now we are compressing about 7 dB. If we go all the way down, boom, same threshold, but more compression is applied. Okay, let's put it back. Then we have the attack time. Now this is the first control that I keep. Is very important and often misunderstood. And what it does is it sets the time that the compressor will take to start compressing once the signal exceeds the threshold. This is one of the main difference between a compressor and a limiter. A limiter has a 0 attack time, okay? Nothing pass. The compressor has an attack time. No matter how fast is it, it will take some time once the signal exceeds the threshold to start compressing. Now, of course, you can set it pretty fast and nothing will pass, and it's pretty obvious. But yeah, the attack does this. It tells the compressor after how many milliseconds, microseconds some compressor take before start compressing. So if we have an attack time that's as fast as possible, you can see, and here nothing passes. Okay. A fast attack time, and this is the first tip, will make the material sound further away. It will smash it. It will take the punch away. And here is the way I would like you to see the attack time. The attack time is your punch control. You want the snare to have more punch. You want the snare to have more snap. You need a slower attack time. Why? Because the slower the attack time, the more part, the longer the part that it gets through without being compressed is. And this results in a snappier sound. I'm using the snare because it's the more obvious to hear. So, super fast attack. Let me apply more compression. It's gonna be more obvious. Smashed. Snappy. Okay. Of course, if it's too slow, the compressor will not catch anything. You can see. I mean, it barely touching it because, especially with percussive material, because the transients is so short that, you know, if you attack time, it's too long. It just doesn't catch it at all. Whole mixes, vocals, that's another thing. It can be pretty long. It will sound more natural most of the time. So don't just go straight for the faster attack time to control picks. Okay, this is your punch control. This is your snap control. Okay. Then we have the release time. Release time is pretty straightforward, but again, it's very important. It will tell the compressor how long to take to go back to unity gain, to zero, to stop compressing after the signal it gets below the threshold. So again, visually, see, it goes back right away if I lower the release. Okay. Now, as you can see here, the snare hit gets softer. I mean, with the slower release, it gets softer. Okay, see your release as your aggressiveness control. Why? Because of course, if you compress this part of the snare, I mean the first transient, the first part of the transient, and the release is fast enough, when you use the makeup gain to compensate, this part, the sustain of the snare will come up, and of course room will be revealed, and details will be revealed, and I mean you can hear it. This way, see the sustain of the snare. If I do this, okay, the ring, the snares at the bottom, See, you lose detail, you lose aggressiveness. With a faster release time, everything, you know, gets what doesn't gets compressed. It benefits from the makeup gain, so the track will get more dense. Let's process this, for example, and see what happens. See, the sustain, it got louder. Now, if I use a very fast attack, not even the first transient, see, it just got fat. Look at the track, you know, immediately got fat. From here to here, it got fat because the transients got compressed and the release is fast enough that the makeup gain, it brings up all the sustain. If I use a slower release, this doesn't happen. See, it barely changed because the compression is so slow, the release is so slow. See, that the compressor takes a long time to go back to unity gain to 0, and the release is one of the main differences between VCA and optocompression. And one of the main differences, it's actually the release. We will talk about this in later videos because that's very important. So look at your release as your aggressiveness, and the faster the release is, the more artifacts they're gonna be, more distortion. But sometimes from compressors, you know, that's what you want, because we will see we use compression not only for dynamic control, but for tone, for special effects and stuff like that. So release your aggressiveness, attack your punch, your where do I want to put the material, up front or way back. Okay, the faster is gonna be the way, the further away is gonna be, the slower, again within limits, the punchier, the snappier is gonna be our sounds. Then pretty much every other compressor has an auto release, which is technically an automatic reading of the material by the compressor, and will apply a variable release time. Some can sound very musical, so experiment with that. And then we have the output level. The output level, also called makeup gain. So what it usually does is, what we use it for is, let's say we compress, again, 12 dB, and we usually want to compensate for the same 12 dB. And this is a very important point, because what you need to pay attention to is not to get fooled by level. And what I mean with it is, some compression, especially, well, usually all the compressors, but let's say digital more than analog, as soon as you open them, they raise the level a couple of dB, 3 dB, and that will fool you, because whatever is louder, our brain tells us is better. So one thing that we'll see in the future is how to force plugins to open to your own preset, because some plugins you open them up and they raise the level immediately, and you go, huh, it sounds better. No, it actually don't. It's just louder. So make sure you compensate and you don't overcompensate. And this compressor and other compressor too has an auto makeup gain, which automatically compensate for the gain reduction applied. Now, this one works pretty well, but most auto compensation usually tend to raise the level again. So I'm not a fan of auto makeup gain. Just do it manually, but make sure that the signal that is compressed has the same level that the uncompressed signal when you compare them, always. So see, it's obviously different, but without compression is louder, we perceive it as better. When the volume is so low, you know, it usually we don't like it. But if it's like this, now I'm clipping just an example. Okay, it's mashed, but it's louder, so it's more exciting, but it's not necessarily better. Okay, so use the makeup gain accordingly. Okay, so I think this can be it for part 2 of our ultimate compression tutorial. We've seen, you know, what the basic controls are, and in the next videos we're gonna go into details and see advanced control and advanced techniques. So stay tuned, because we're gonna see some really cool stuff, and it's not gonna be the, you know, every other tutorial that you've seen. I will spill the beans and give you some tips and secrets and tricks that I hope you will enjoy. So please like and subscribe, and see you next time.